going to be going through 2 Timothy. Our verses that we're going to be going through, it's chapter 4, verses 9 through 22. Now, one thing in looking at this passage, it's hard for us in this classroom. Sometimes we complain we're in this class. But if you put yourself in Paul's position, where is he? He's in the Mamertine prison. He's over in Rome. It's a dark place. It's not a nice place. He's not under house arrest like he was during 1 Timothy. He's sitting there alone in this jail cell, save Luke. And he's sitting there. And you really got to think, where is he at this point in his life? He had suffered greatly, been through so much. He had outpoured himself to the church. Yet at this point in his life, he's pretty much alone. And not only is he alone, but he's awaiting a death sentence. He's knowing he's going to die. So you put yourself in that, and you go, wow, this is the setting where Paul is preaching from at this moment. As we jump in to verse 9, do thy diligence to come shortly unto me, for Demas hath forsaken me, having loved this present world, and is departed unto Thessalonica, Crescens to Galatia, Titus unto Dalmatia. Only Luke is with me. Take Mark and bring him with thee, for he is profitable to me for the ministry. And Tychicus have I sent to Ephesus. The cloak that I left at Troas with Carpus, when thou comest, bring with thee, and the books, but especially the parchments. Alexander the coppersmith did me much evil. The Lord reward him according to his works, of whom be thou were also, for he hath greatly withstood our words. At my first answer, no man stood with me, but all men forsook me. Now listen to that. He's just run through a list of people that abandoned him. They left. He outpoured himself to these churches in all his letters. You read Ephesians, you read Philippians, you read Corinthians. He's constantly exhorting. He's constantly outpouring himself. Yet at this moment, no man responded to his call. Save Luke. Nobody was there. How many of you gentlemen in this room have been forsaken in your life? How many of you had a spouse, a family member, somebody that you loved turn their back on you? How many of you, for preaching the gospel, have been forsaken by your own family? And I think that really drives home and brings us to the next point, that only the Lord will stand with us. And if you look at Paul, not only these people, but he was a member of the Sanhedrin, meaning he was married. His wife was no longer with him. You got to think, as a member of the Sanhedrin, a Pharisee of Pharisees, all his friends that he had in that circle, these people that were close to him, these were the same people that were trying to kill him because they wanted him dead, because he was the biggest spokesman for Christianity and against the very thing that they believed. Now, as you go into verse 16, it says, I pray God that it may not be laid to their charge. How could he say this? Because as he said, he was the chief of all sinners. He understood the grace that he was forgiven. Until Acts 9, on the road to Damascus, he was out persecuting. He was killing. You know the story. And then he was given this grace of Jesus Christ, who turned him around to use him. How many of you gentlemen in this room have been turned around? And we've got to remember the grace that he was saying and that the Lord gave him. And he was saying in this passage, not to lay it to their charge. And it says in verse 17, notwithstanding, the Lord stood with me and strengthened me, that by me the preaching might be fully known, and that all the Gentiles might hear. And I was delivered out of the mouth of a lion. And the Lord shall deliver me from every evil work, and will preserve me unto the heavenly kingdom, to whom be glory forever and ever. Amen. If we go out as we preach the gospel, we will have some suffering. But we're not going to go through what Paul went through. He was shipwrecked 3 times, beaten by rods 3 times. He was stoned and listed, drug out, pretty much dead. And he comes back, and what does he do the next day? He goes and he preaches the gospel again. How could he do that? Because he understood that the Lord was always standing with him. As he said, he counts it joy, his sufferings. And why? because he also understood that there's a special intimacy that we go through when we suffer. When we suffer, we are with him. And so, as it says in Hebrews chapter 2, verse 10, for it became him from whom all things, by whom are all things, in bringing many sons unto glory, to make the captain of their salvation perfect through sufferings. So remember, the Lord will always stand by us. There's one thing I want to convey. People will leave you. People will abandon you. But the Lord will never abandon us. And as we go out into ministry and we go through trials, as we go through sufferings, just continue to draw close to the Lord. Thank you.
Yeah.